Hey, Slapdog! The Brainiacs are ready!
Here we go. Welcome into LeatherBrainz, your host, your Slapdog for episode 178, baby. I am joined today by my two good friends, Alan Casanova Castro and Yeti, who has been off the show for the last few weeks. It's great to have you back here and in the studio, my friend. How you doing?
Dude, I'm doing good. You know, I got a kind of a part-time gig for now, about to be a full-time gig, becoming a dad. So I'll be off the show at the end of July, but, you know, until the baby's here, I'm going to keep on grinding.
Congrats on the sex.
Yeah, huge congrats on the sex.
Congrats.
Wish I don't even know what that's like.
Thanks to LeatherBrainz, I learned how to have sex.
And the show is over. Yeah, congratulations on becoming a dad. And I do just want to note, just because you are not on the show does not mean that you will not be working for us in the background in a lot of different ways. So we're excited to still have you aboard the team and contributing in some other ways other than just your beautiful voice. Now, I will say this. As I have said the last few weeks, the NFL content is somewhat small. There is not a ton to talk about, so we have grabbed the most pressing of headlines that we could find to discuss today. So let's jump into it, gentlemen. The front cover of Madden was announced today, and it was none other than the 49ers running back, Mr. Sexy himself, Christian McCaffrey, CMC. He's not the first running back to make the Madden cover, boys. I didn't know if you knew this, but there have been some others, such as Barry Sanders, Marshawn Faulk, Eddie George, Peyton Hillis, and other previous athletes, or Josh Allen, John Madden, Mahomes / Brady, and Lamar. Do you think for the Mahomes-Brady one, like, Mahomes feels slightly snubbed? Or Brady feels slightly snubbed that they had to share a front cover?
That was
I think Madden was kind of like, we've had Mahomes in it too many times. Let's share the cover a little bit with other athletes.
What cover was that? Wasn't that the COVID one?
I feel like it was like 21 or 20. It was somewhere around there.
What year was that? Because I think that was the COVID one. I think that was the only reason. Yeah, it was 22. Man, maybe not. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. I think
because you think about it, most players don't really share a cover that often.
No. Peyton Hillis is the funniest one because that's what back when Madden used to vote on who was going to be on the cover, like used to vote. And Peyton Hillis with the Browns was like very popular, and he had like one good season, and then he was on the cover, and literally you never heard from him ever again, which is absolutely hilarious. Whereas at least the rest of the guys, you're like, oh, probably Hall of Famer, probably Hall of Famer, probably Hall of Famer. And then you're like, Peyton Hillis. It's like
I wonder if they stopped the voting 100%. After that, and they're like, it's kind of funny. We did that when we were in high school for our senior prom, our prom king. We all banded together and voted for like the one guy who would never probably win it, and super nice guy, love him to death. He was a great dude, but just like not your prototypical prom king at all. And we all just banded together and voted for him, and he won the whole thing. And
the power of voting
sounds. Yeah, I hope he doesn't listen to this podcast because his life's probably ruined.
Willie, I'm so sorry if you're listening and I have embarrassed you.
He was carrying that around like a badge of honor. Yeah. He's finally voted prom king. I think, the Madden curse, real, fake? We'll find out. Something to keep an eye on this year, I guess, with McCaffrey. Now, whenever you get put on that cover, you're already on curse watch. Like the clock starts running for the curses.
And I feel like CMC was kind of already on curse watch, or everybody's just kind of like you're hesitant because he's been injury prone in the past. He hasn't been in the last couple seasons. He stayed relatively healthy, but this is kind of, if I was Christian McCaffrey, I probably would have asked him like, hey, can you just keep me off this like for another year or two before you decide to put me on there? Because
it's worth noting that the Raiders are on the cover too. So if the Raiders have a bad year, I'm blaming the Madden curse.
That's what you're blaming?
That's what it is.
That's what you're blaming?
Yep.
Interesting.
Not looking at our players or our coaching staff. It's the Madden curse. Guaranteed.
All right. Well, guys, Mike Tomlin, he officially signed a 3-year extension with the Steelers yesterday. The Steelers have only had 3 head coaches since the NFL-AFL merger in 1970. This is freaking nuts.
That doesn't
Chuck
make
Noll
sense.
for 23 seasons, Bill Cowher for 15 seasons, and Tomlin now for 21 seasons if he stays through his new extension. That is incredible. Like, that is absolutely mind-blowing to me, because I feel like in the NFL anymore, it's you get like 2 to 3 years to prove yourself, and if you can't get it done, it's on to the next. So, and historically, Tomlin has been pretty good. Like, if you look at his resume, he's won 7 AFC North championships, 1 AFC championship, 1 Super Bowl championship. His winning percentage, I think, is probably one of the most impressive things. 62% winning percentage. And the mantra in the NFL is the Steelers will never have a losing season because Tomlin's there. And it like, you look at the statistics, yeah, it proves it. But also, they always find a way. They always find a way. They're 5-9 in the postseason record since 2008 Super Bowl wins. So I present you guys with all of this information with this question. Did the Steelers make the right call here?
Oh, yeah. Tomlin is a mainstay. You look at what he did last year with that team, and we talked about it towards the end of the season. We're like, how are they actually going to finish the year? Are they going to finish below 500? And you're like, no, probably not with Tomlin. But you look at that roster, you look at what they were dealing with at quarterback and Pickett, and, they obviously have pieces around, but you're like, I don't know how he does it. He's just really good. And then largely, I think where a lot of people are optimistic with Justin Fields going over there, because, like, Tomlin knows how to coach. Like, he knows how to get the most out of the individuals that are on the team. Like, it's very evident he does. And so I think that's what's interesting about having Russell Wilson and Justin Fields there is like, all right, what is he going to get out of these guys? What are we going to see? Because he can motivate. And you look at what he did in that locker room with what we can see now has happened with Antonio Brown and what has happened with Juju Smith. Like, he was able to keep all that under wrap, and Big Ben, assaulting women in bathrooms. Like, he literally had it all. He had it all.
Le'Veon doing his contract disputes and making a mixtape as well.
And still no losing season. So quite incredible what he's done. He's an all-timer.
So what expectations do we have the Steelers this year? Are they going to go, 9-8? Is that kind of historically what we're going with here? I mean,
it's the benchmark, isn't it? It's the benchmark. It's unfortunate the division they're in, though. Like, the division's only gotten even more stacked. When that division's healthy, you have a healthy Burrow. You have Lamar, obviously, they have to deal with. And then if Cleveland can figure it out, it's funny because that's the only piece they're really missing, or it's a question mark, is the quarterback. So it's tough. That whole division's tough. And that's why last year was impressive what he did. And if he can do it again this year, like, even above and getting in, they're always that team that sneaks into the playoffs, and you're like, well, they're probably going to lose right away, but I don't even know how they got here. That's kind of how it's been the last few years for this.
Who the hell is Kenny Pickett?
Yeah, 100%.
Yeti, your former tight end at the ripe age of 31 and following his hit single, Who Knew, Darren Waller has announced his retirement from the New York Jets, presumptuously to pursue a rap career as a new full-time passion project, career. I don't know what we call it, but when that song came out, I didn't know if I was losing touch with reality as far as like what good music is or not, because I listened to it and I was just like, what am I listening? This is terrible. And then I had to go ask one of the guys on the LeatherBrainz team who's a couple years younger than I am. And I was like, hey, like, is this like what new music sounds like? And he goes, no, this is dog shit. And I said, okay, good. Then I guess I'm still trending in the right direction as far as taste is concerned. It was terrible. It was really horrible. And I just find it, I found it to be humorous, and I think that's probably where Darren Waller's going to go attempt to make music, and I think it's probably, attempt is a nice word to say.
Is it? Go ahead.
Yeah. I was going to say, in all seriousness, I think football kind of saved Darren Waller's life in a lot of ways. You look back at his time to where he started in the NFL. He was on the Ravens practice squad in 2017. John Gruden, who was the Raiders head coach at the time, saw him on the practice squad and was like, look, we want this guy. And so John Gruden brought him in to the Raiders. He was with the Raiders from 2018 to 2022. And for a 2-year stretch, he looked like one of the best tight ends in the NFL. You could argue that him and Travis Kelce were 1A, 1B type for the 2020 season and the 2019 season. But he was plagued with injuries, and I don't know what exactly happened with him. I don't know if the trade to the Giants kind of just unraveled his career, but it kind of all went downhill after that trade in 2022. So I wish the best for Darren Waller, but I just want to point out the fact that he was one of the best tight ends for a period of time.
No, he was. I'm not going to argue that. I don't think he ever has a best of anything in his rap career, but he was a great tight end. He was. And I will say this because I did watch, he kind of announced, he had a little video announcing his retirement. And the one thing that I did really appreciate from him is the fact that he was pretty honest. You know, he said, like, I feel like my passion for the game really has dwindled and he's not interested anymore, which, you know, I appreciated that. Like I said, he is getting older at 31, but he could have kept milking this. He could have went out there and tried to play football and maybe may or may not have gotten hurt again. But for him to just sit there and say, you know what? I am getting older. I don't have a passion for this game nearly as much as I used to. And for him to hang up the hat, I think it was nice to see, because the inverse is we sit here and watch this man try and milk as much money as he can out of the league, and it just isn't a good look. So I'm fine with it.
Did nobody give him actual feedback on that rap song? Do you think everybody said it was good and he was like, oh yeah, fuck yeah, we got this, baby. I'm Spotify, here I come, or like what?
Oh man.
I really hope that he's not leaving for the rap career. I hope it's now is a good time to hang it up, and I am gonna go try rapping. I don't know.
I don't think rapping is what he should do. And
he's just got divorced.
Yeah.
He's going through it.
He is.
He's going through it.
Yeah, I don't know. Realistically, it's not a good look. And while we're talking about realistic possibilities, what does this look like for the Giants? Does this really impact them much at all, do we think, from an offensive perspective?
I don't think from an offensive perspective they're really going to miss Waller. I mean, he was gone for majority of the season last year, and he was their second. He led. God, how do I word this? He had the second most receptions for the Giants last season and the third most receiving yards, even though he played 10 games.
Yeah.
So it's not like this offense was relying on him, so to say. But they did draft Malik Neighbors, which is, that's an exciting prospect that we're all excited about, all high on. It's just a matter of what can Daniel Jones do? What version of Daniel Jones are we going to see this year?
For the Darren Waller thing, I think the Giants fans are going to miss the idea of what was supposed to be Darren Waller in this offense. They never really got to see it. You never really got to see it all humming because he was definitely athletic enough. I think that's the part that sucks, is like when you make these moves, you assume this isn't like Madden. This is where, it's not like a video game where you're like, oh, if you just put this guy on this team, it's all going to work out. And you're like, that's not how it works. That's not how humans work. That's not how we all vibe. Like, you don't know how all these things are going to go. And that's how a lot of the trades you see happen around the league. Like, there is some gelling that needs to happen, even for teams like the Eagles, where you're like, oh, they got Saquon now, or the Ravens, you're like, oh, you got Derrick Henry now. This is plug and play. You got, whatever ranked person, like on Madden, like he's just going to perform. Like, you don't know how this is going to go. And so it sucks for the Giants because they don't get to see what this is like. But I mean, hopefully Darren Waller can bounce back with a rap career. Fingers crossed.
Oh no, not with that song. Last question about the Giants. What does the tight end room look like now? Like, who do we expect? Daniel Bellinger to be the new tight end one in this offense, or they did draft a rookie, I believe it's Theo Johnson, I think is his name.
Yep.
Is the new rookie that they drafted this year. Do you have any thoughts or opinions as far as what this tight end room looks like without Darren Waller?
I think a lot of people are going to look towards Theo Johnson, who they did draft in the 4th round this year out of Penn State. But if you look at all the scouting reports on Theo Johnson, he's a very raw person, very raw athlete. He's got great size and he's got good hands, but can he run routes? Can he, does he have the speed? He's going to take a lot of development.
Sure.
But I think Daniel Bellinger is going to be that guy to start with. Obviously, he's been there for a couple years now. He knows the offense. He's familiar with Dable and with Daniel Jones. So Bellinger is going to be the guy. I don't think Theo Johnson is going to turn into like a tight end that you must start, or like a Travis Kelce-esque. I mean, he could be, right? He's a rookie, but I don't think it's fair to expect that out of him for the next 3 years at least.
I'd agree with that. Let's talk about Mercedes Lewis. He signs with the Bears on a 1-year deal. 19th season. No NFL player has played longer at the tight end position than Mercedes Lewis. This is insane. This is absolutely wild.
That's incredible. Especially, like, I wouldn't have, thought Mercedes Lewis was going to be the one to do it, but, shout out to him and his body. I think
there's no way.
Yeah,
I'm just like,
isn't that insane? Looking at this stat,
is this guy?
I don't know. Google how old is Mercedes Lewis.
He's 40.
Jesus.
Is he
As
really?
a tight end.
Is he seriously 40?
Yeah, born 1984. He's 40 years old.
Makes sense. He started when he was 21. Yeah.
I remember, this is going to be weird. I remember watching him at UCLA, and I was like, oh, this guy's pretty good. And now I feel like that was literally, it was a lifetime ago that he was playing at UCLA, literally. 40 years old. Okay, a question for you guys. That's a lot of seasons to play in the NFL. Who has played the most seasons in the NFL? Who's numero uno for seasons played in the NFL?
I feel like the low-hanging fruit would be Tom Brady, would be what everybody would guess.
Is it?
But I feel like that's too
Vinatieri?
easy.
You would be close, but it is not.
Ooh.
It is not Brady. It is not Vinatieri. It's not a kicker. That's actually.
Vinatieri's a good one.
It's actually a. You're kind of close. I'll explain.
It's a kicker. Is it a kicker?
Kinda.
What do you mean,
Your answer
is it the water boy?
It's George Blanda, who was both a kicker and a quarterback.
God.
What?
Former Raider. Yeah,
Yeah.
baby.
He played 26 seasons in the NFL. He also, I think, is the oldest player to ever play in the NFL. I think he was like 47, and he was still playing. So he was.
That just makes me feel like a piece of shit because I'm 29 and this guy is like an old man, and he's just like, man, I'll just go out there. And
Hey, it should give you hope. You got, 17 years
time.
ago playing that.
I wish I could throw this picture up on the stream right now. Maybe we'll edit it in and throw it on there. But the picture that I found of him in a football, he looks like he's 80. He did not age well. People back then, I think that's what's funny about when you look back at old photos, especially old sports photos. Like if you look at NBA or old NFL photos, you're like, you look like you're 80. Like, how the hell are you 35? Like, and I look at me in the mirror and I look like a fucking child, but these guys look like damn near just, grandpas. They're like about to enter the nursing home. I'll have to show you this picture. It's kind of wild.
Oh my God. Yeti just showed it to me. That guy is dusty.
Is it? Yeah.
It doesn't help
one.
that the picture's black and white, but
Yeah.
holy, like you can tell that hair has a bunch of gray in it.
He looked like he was a Civil War reenactor and then went to throw on a football jersey. He doesn't look like a football. But anyways, 26 seasons. You said Tom Brady 23, so he was getting close, but even that was celebrated as like.
I mean, he was
he's pretty old. Follow-up question then to that is, who's a player that you wish had a longer career that may have been cut short, or that you'd want to have seen more of their prime? Either it was cut short in seasons, or they just didn't. Their prime wasn't long enough.
Andrew Luck was the first one that came to mind for me.
I have two answers. As a Raiders fan, Darren McFadden, because when Darren McFadden was healthy, he was a sick running back for the Raiders. My second answer from an NFL perspective is Megatron. I think it would have been a lot of fun to see Megatron with Matthew Stafford for a lot longer.
Yeah, he just opened up a weed shop, I think, after he retired.
Nice.
Respect.
Yeah,
Mine was when I asked this. Mine was it's not necessarily that his career was long, but I wish he didn't get arrested and do stupid things. But Michael Vick was just so fun to watch when he was just in his prime, and I feel like we were just robbed of that because he had to go away for a little while. But prime Michael Vick was like some of the best football viewing.
It was. Let's move on here. Lions. The Lions, they violated player work rules, and they had to forfeit Monday's practice as a result. I don't really know the full story on here. I think Scotty had added this. Actually, I know Scotty added this because he put some comments here that I'm going to refuse to read because it's insulting.
This was his. He added this?
Yeah, he added this. Look at the. Okay, I'm not reading it.
I'll read it. Lions admitted they violated player work rules. Typical Dan Campbell in his idiocy. Yeah, this is totally Matt.
Yeah, this is just.
He's on this smear campaign. I wonder if Dan Campbell has nudes of Matt. Maybe that's what's happening. Like Dan Campbell has like
nudes of Matt.
I almost have nudes of Matt. I wonder if Dan Campbell must have something on Matt where he's just like refusing to give him an inch. There has to be something there.
There has to be. I don't understand what it is, but I'm not going to slander Dan Campbell. He made it. I don't know what happened, to be honest. I don't know the full story. I just know that the Lions had to forfeit practice because I think they were. I think it was contact related. I think they were. It was a non-contact, and they were doing
inappropriate touching.
Yeah.
Which honestly, like that just screams Dan Campbell. He's like, oh, it's a non-combat or non-contact like day, and Dan Campbell's like, no, fuck that. We're gonna go hit each other, and then it's just manly.
as he's like putting a dip in, just
Throwing
dropping
jaw
a
into the
hammer,
freaking-
just dropping a
Yeah.
hammer in that lower lip. Maybe he's going top bottom. Hey, this is actually, I just thought of something. If you're an NFL player and you know this is a rule, if you just wanted an extra day off, would you just go and like just start hitting everybody? Like, we did a lot of contacts. I really think we should forfeit a practice. That might be a solid move if you're just looking for an extra day off in the NFL. Just sabotage your own practice.
Incredible idea. Yeah, you're just like, you just turn your team in. You didn't even actually do any contact, but you just turn your team in to try and get the day off.
Just get everybody in on it. Say, hey, just say we all like totally smacked each other yesterday, but got it. Day off. Dope.
Well, I won't give Scotty any kudos for the Dan Campbell slander, but what I will do is give him some kudos for an article that was written and posted on LeatherBrainz.com. Go check it out. It is a hilarious article written by Scotty himself, and it also is really concerning. Justin Herbert. I don't know if anybody has heard this, but Justin Herbert's arm may shrivel up and become a decaying skin bag due to Jim Harbaugh's offense and inability to throw the ball due to no receivers. So I highly recommend. Scotty did a lot of due diligence and research there. Go check it out, LeatherBrainz.com, and for all you Chargers fans out there or fantasy football players, this could really impact your season with Justin Herbert. So go check that out. And then I do pose this question because I mentioned fantasy football. Where do you guys rank Justin Herbert from a redraft fantasy perspective this year? Like, and so I'm going to give you guys a couple quarterbacks, and I want to know who you would rather draft for fantasy. Okay, are you okay over there?
I can't get over decaying skin back. Oh my!
Yeah, it's really dangerous. There's supposedly doctors have studied this.
Okay,
go read the article if you have.
Yeah, I'm excited.
So, for fantasy football this year, would you rather have Justin Herbert or Kirk Cousins? We'll start with you, Yeti.
Kirk Cousins.
Okay. Alan?
I'll still take Herbert.
Really? Because I'm taking Kirk O'Chain, so I'm
not sold. I'm not sold on that Achilles. I don't know. Like I'm not even sold on Aaron Rodgers being like super effective when he comes out, and like everybody's largely chalking that up to be like, nope, he's good. And then Kirk is like, I don't know what kind of rehab facility Coles has, but I'm not too sure that he's going to be like all the way buttoned up, which is why I think everybody is still shaking their head at the Penix move, but I think they might know a little bit more than we do. That's just where like my meter's going is I think there's more there.
Okay. What about Trevor Lawrence or Justin Herbert, Alan?
This one's tough. I will probably take Trevor Lawrence. Also, a lot of decisions I make you'll see are just largely not because of the actual football. I think Trevor Lawrence is going to be desperate. I think he's going to want to show and prove that he is worthy of, being one of the top NFL quarterbacks. I think they were in the playoffs not long ago. I think they want to get back, and I think they have the roster too. And so I think aside from the weapons and the opportunities he's going to have to throw, I think I like Trevor just from the standpoint of like, I think he's going to have emphasis on producing this year.
Okay. Yeti?
I tend to agree with you, Alan. I lean Trevor Lawrence with his rushing upside. I think we saw that a lot more last year before Trevor Lawrence got hurt. And obviously, fantasy football, you want quarterbacks that run. Give me Trevor Lawrence.
Okay.
And I think he's in a much better offense for what it's worth.
I will also take Trevor Lawrence there. Let's do Matthew Stafford. I will kick things off here. I'm taking Matt Stafford over Justin Herbert in fantasy football this year, and I will now kick the ball over to you, Yeti.
I'm going to go Stafford. I think it falls back to the offense is better as well for Matt Stafford.
Yep.
Agreed.
Same.
You agree with that, Alan?
Yeah, the running back room and then Puka and Cup, like that's obviously you have weapons all over that. You don't have to do everything.
Sure. Let's round this out. We talked about him, Aaron Rodgers. Alan, would you take Herbert this year or Rodgers?
From a fantasy perspective, it is tough. You know what? I'm going to still take Herbert just for the fact that I think in that division, they're going to have to be playing from behind more often than not. And I think Herbert's going to have to push the ball. I don't know who he's going to push the ball to, but he's going to have to. Versus Aaron Rodgers, I think with that team and that defense and the running back room and just the weapons he does have, I think he you'll see some like mid-20s, and then his defense just salts it away. So I think you're going to get diminishing returns as the game goes on from Rodgers than you may previously have before.
Okay. Yeti, you taking Rodgers or Herbo?
I'm taking Herbert.
Okay. I'm also going to take Herbert. For the exact reasons that Alan mentioned. I think that there's a lot of concerns with Rodgers. There's a lot of concerns with Rodgers across the fantasy scape, and I know Jets fans are, well, yesterday Aaron Rodgers was not at practice. He was he got fined, and Salah had said that he knew about it ahead of time, and like it was no big deal. Rodgers had something that he really wanted to go and be a part of or some shit. So I know Jets fans are giving Rodgers a lot of shit for that, and NFL fans in general, but there is concern. I think there is legitimate concern. His age and that injury, it's I don't know. I'll take Herbert. Last Chargers piece of conversation, Harbaugh. Do we really believe that he can come in and clean up this offense? Like, I mean, they lost both of their star wide receivers. You know, we jokingly mentioned, and probably not really jokingly mentioned, who is Herbert going to throw the ball to? And we know that Harbaugh historically has liked to run the ball. So is there concerns here for the Chargers? And I'm also going to add this in there. I was thinking about this today. I was cooking some dinner earlier, and I got to thinking, how sad would it be to be in the same division as Patrick Mahomes? Like, and I'm not trying to like boost Chiefs' egos. I'm not trying to sit here and say like, man, every other team must give up. But like, Alan, you're a Chiefs fan. You're a Raiders fan, Yeti. Like, I wonder, I really truly wonder, like, if you were an NFL player, do you really believe it's any given Sunday in like to your core and you can beat the Chiefs? Or like, does it kind of suck a little bit because you know that you're playing against one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL in a division that you have to go through the Chiefs?
Let me go first, Yeti, and I'm not going to answer the question directly. I'm going to go a different route. And this is being in the AFC West for some time, having to deal with the Broncos basically my whole life. And first it was John Elway, and then there was a lull, then it was Peyton Manning. And I think during those years when you have a juggernaut of a team, like, listen, the Chiefs' eyes are not on the AFC West. They're trying to three-peat. And the AFC West is a stepping stone for them to get there. So when you have a team that is that like dialed in and knows what to do, it's very difficult. And going back and watching those Broncos teams from a Chiefs perspective, it was like, I hope we can beat them once. Like, you're like, can I just please beat them once? And I think I'll let Yeti answer, but I think that's largely what it is. Like, can we just split it? Can I get them one time? Because it feels good when you get them when they're on top.
I agree with you, Alan. But when you bring in a head coach like Jim Harbaugh, you know what kind of guy you're getting. You're getting a no-nonsense, no bullshit type of guy that has strong leadership qualities, and he has an ability to instill a winning locker room. You've seen this everywhere that he's went, whether it's in the NFL or in the college ranks. His teams they're physical, they are well coached, and they know how to win. And while I don't think the Chargers are going to compete this year, I think they're going to be nasty. Like, they are going to be a physical, tough team that you don't want to see. And I think you give him a year or two to instill this kind of this mindset into his players. The Chargers are going to be an interesting team to watch going forward.
Yep.
Yeah, I tend to agree. I don't think this year is going to be their year. But like I said, I truly was thinking like, man, like that must really suck being in the same division as Patrick Mahomes, because it does. Great. No, it's not. And like, I don't want to sit here and say there are other tough divisions, right? Like, anything can happen any given Sunday, but like from a player's perspective, what is their mentality like? Because that's got to be rough. Like, you just know that you're going into a game that you're the underdog, and it's like you go in with that underdog mentality and you want to win, but like, you know that you can play the best game of football you've ever played, and there's still a pretty good probability that you might walk away with an L. So I don't know. It's just interesting to think about. Speaking of thinking about things, Stefon Diggs has thought that his move to the Texans is now a breath of fresh air. Offensive coordinator Bobby Slowick had reportedly been impressed with Stefon Diggs during OTAs and stated that he has a noticeable connection with CJ Stroud and can be used in multiple receiver spots. I don't know if Bobby Slowick knows who Stefon Diggs is. I don't know if he's ever watched tape on Stefon Diggs before he got to the Texans, but Stefon Diggs has been historically one of the upper echelon wide receivers in the NFL. So I kind of found that funny. And I know that he is, people are concerned that he's starting to slow down a little bit and he's not Stefon Diggs of old. But do we think that there's still some gas here in the tank? And is Stefon Diggs somebody that you're still interested in owning for fantasy? And also, do we think that he's going to be a main target for CJ Stroud in this Texans offense?
Yeti, I'll let you go.
I think for fantasy, this offense is really going to be hard to predict. Obviously, they have 3 huge wide receivers there with Stefon Diggs, Nico Collins, and Tank Dell. But from a real life perspective, this has the potential to be one of the best wide receiver rooms we've seen in the past, 10, 15, maybe ever, because of what their weapons look like. You have Stefon Diggs, who is one of the best route runners the NFL has seen. You have Nico Collins, who's one of the best vertical threats in the NFL today. And then you have Tank Dell, who's also a significant yak guy. You can get him the ball in space and he's going to do damage. So it's like on any given Sunday, one of these guys could be the wide receiver 1 for CJ Stroud. And I don't think it's possible to pinpoint who that's going to be at the start of the season. We can all say, oh, it's going to be Tank Dell. Oh, it's going to be Diggs. Sure, I hear your case. But from a real life perspective, they're all going to eat. And it's going to be a fun offense to watch.
Yeah, I think, Slaps, this is largely what you talk about, too, with the Chiefs, where you're like, I don't want a piece of it. I don't know where it's going to go. And I think you're going to run into that here. But I don't think that Diggs is going to be Stroud's number 1 option. You saw at the end of last year, it wasn't even Josh Allen's number 1 option anymore. And I don't know if that's a physical thing or a mental thing from Diggs or just how they were running the offense. So it'll be the first half of the season will be interesting to see if it's truthfully on Diggs or if it was just how he's being used. But I don't think coming out of the gates, he'll even be the number 1 option, which is kind of scary for that offense, as Yeti has stated.
Sure.
And this might be wishful thinking on my part, but Stefon Diggs, he's going to be 31 years old this year. 31 years old. Jesus, why can't I talk today?
You got it.
And maybe he's realized that, hey, I can't be the primary wide receiver every single week anymore. So I'm okay with taking a lessened role of like 100 targets. That's wishful thinking on my part, right?
Sure.
But if he has accepted that at this point, this could extend his career for another 2-3 years.
That would be wild to me. You said something earlier that I want to go back to. Is you said this could be the best wide receiver room we have seen in the last 10, 15, maybe ever. Do you think that this wide receiver room is better than the Bears' current wide receiver room with Keenan Allen, DJ Moore, and Rome Odunze? Which would you rather have as an NFL fan?
I say the Texans room because we know what we're getting with all those guys, and we've seen what this offense can look like with 2 of the 3. Whereas if we look at the Bears, we've never seen this offense before with Caleb Williams, with Rome Odunze. This is a completely new offense from last year too, so it's hard for me to be like, I think the talent could be equal, but we don't know that right now with Odunze and Williams. So.
Sure, and you're looking at it. I'm just talking about pure wide receiver room, not including the quarterback position or anything. I'd almost argue the Bears wide receiver room is better. I mean, you know what Keenan Allen is when he's healthy, and you also know what DJ Moore is. And DJ Moore, you look at DJ Moore's career, I don't know if I have more respect for any wide receiver in the NFL than I do DJ Moore, because the guy, no matter what team he goes to, is a contributor, and he's a good, and I think that speaks of his talent as a wide receiver to be able to play. He's played with, when he was with the Panthers, and I don't have the stats in front of me at the moment, but he was playing with almost a different quarterback every single year of his career with the Panthers, and then he comes and plays with Justin Fields with the Bears, and now has another new quarterback. I want to say the number now is like 5 or 6 different quarterbacks every single there since his career started in the NFL. So I would argue, I think the Bears wide receiver room is a little bit better than the Texans, to be honest with you. And I think that we're talking potato a little bit at this point. But
I think so,
go ahead,
too.
Alan.
I was going to say you could throw Bengals in there as it sits today. You could say that is, or
Sure.
Even last year was great. The Dolphins you could throw in there as like, hey, those are. I think it's just depending on how you want to run. I think the 2 you offered are probably the ones that have like, okay, where is this going to go? Like that we have some dudes in the room now that like we can play with for quite some time. But I think I think that just highlights and underscores the need to have a robust wide receiver room, because that's how the game's played. Like, you have to have multiple pass catchers. Long gone are the days of I have a wide receiver one that's going to get all the targets. Like, it is going to be shared, and we're seeing that all over. Playing fantasy football is like the hardest it's ever been now, because you don't know anymore. You just don't know. You don't have the running back getting 30 touches, every day, every game, unless you're McCaffrey. And that's what underscores like dissecting matchups and who's actually going to get and who's healthy. And it's like you used to be able to play fantasy where you'd set a lineup and like, you'd be like, all right, that's probably my lineup the whole year, because my running backs are going to touch the ball, a billion times and score a billion touchdowns. And now it's like, even wide receiver rooms, there's just so many mouths to feed. You just don't know. A lot of times you just don't.
That's a really good point. An article at Boston.com quotes Damian Harris saying, "What happened to Mac Jones in New England was not because of Mac Jones." And instead, Harris blamed the Patriots' offensive struggles on Matt Patricia and Joe Judge, as well as Mr. Billion Belichick himself. Mac Jones was named a Pro Bowler in 2022 and nearly won the division his rookie year with Josh McDaniels, who was the offensive coordinator at the time. Is Damian Harris, is he cooking, gentlemen, or is he a little full of himself here? What do we think?
I don't know.
I think it's funny that Mac Jones was a Pro Bowler. Like, I mean, you look like
Honestly,
that goes to
that's
show
the best.
That's like Tyler Huntley was a Pro Bowler, and Gardner Minshew, whom I love dearly, was also a Pro Bowler. Like, these guys. So Gardner Minshew, I do really genuinely, I love him. But the other guys, I'm like, man, Gardner Minshew also shouldn't be a Pro Bowler. Like, he just shouldn't. And that's not to say he's not a usable server. I think Gardner Minshew is the Ryan Fitzpatrick 2.0, where he'll just hop from team to team and be that starting fill-in quarterback while they figure it out. Like, that's kind of what Gardner Minshew has been, and I think he will be that for the foreseeable future. Not a Pro Bowler. Mac Jones shouldn't have been a Pro Bowler. Tyler Huntley definitely shouldn't have been a Pro Bowler. So I don't know if the Pro Bowl really holds much ground for me, but I mean, Damian Harris is sitting here blaming everybody but Mac Jones for his failures. So what do you guys think?
I think Mac Jones owns a little bit of that, right? But I don't think the coaching staff put him in a situation to really succeed. They went from Josh McDaniels to a defensive coordinator playing calls for the first time in his career. Okay, great. That's a shit show from the beginning, right? Sure. And then we look at the Patriots offensive line. We look at the receiving core. Who has he had to throw the ball to? Juju Smith-Schuster, Demario Douglas, like, I'm not saying these guys are scrubs, but where's his wide receiver one? You look at his offensive line, he was under pressure often. And obviously, when you're a quarterback, you have that internal clock. And God, Mac Jones was struggling back there with the pressure. So
let me play the other side of this coin here. Could you not make the very same argument for Daniel Jones? Honestly, could you not make that now? Mac Jones didn't have as much. I know Daniel Jones has been playing longer than Mac Jones, but can you not make that same argument for Daniel Jones? Can you not say that he hasn't had wide receivers and he hasn't had an offensive line and he's struggled because of those reasons as well? Like, if you're going to give one guy this pass, can we not give it to the other as well?
So Mac Jones, he did have a Pro Bowl season, right? But that was with Josh McDaniels, a proven play caller. Brian Daboll, proven play caller. We look at when Mac Jones struggled, it's when Bill Belichick was on his way out and they introduced Matt Patricia as a fucking play caller. That's like I said, that's death from the get-go, and I don't think it's really. I mean, I get what you're saying here, but what we have to compare their situations of who's calling the shots, because a guy like Brian Daboll, he knows how to use Saquon Barkley, he knows how to use Wan'Dale Robinson, he knows Darren Waller is available some of the time, whereas you have Matt Patricia, who's like, God, I have this fifth-round wide receiver that's probably shouldn't be seeing the field right now. What the fuck am I supposed to do? Like, I can't just run the ball 60 times a game, so it's kind of hard.
So you do think the coaching certainly plays part of Mac Jones' failure
100%. 100%, yes.
Alan, you're nodding your head. You agree with that?
Yeah. I don't know. This whole the what's interesting with quarterbacks is that I don't know. We always say this. It's the position you go into. Mm-hmm. Right. we've said that how many times on this? Like, how many talented guys get drafted to teams that they're like, damn, that just didn't work out. I don't think Mac Jones is that talented. I don't see and look at him. I don't look at him and be like, oh my God, like if you just put him somewhere else, he's going to be so great. Like, I don't think he is. I just don't think he's that good. Like, there was nothing that you could see where you're like, wow, he's shining. He just doesn't have anybody. And you can see that with other teams. There's other quarterbacks. You're like, wow, this guy's pretty good. He just doesn't have anybody. Like, that sucks. You know, there's nobody to throw to right now. And I just don't see that with Mac Jones. And I don't see that with Daniel Jones, and I don't see that with either of them. I don't look at either of them like, could you go replace them with somebody? Yeah, I think you could very easily go replace them. Like, would Dak Prescott be an improvement for either of these teams if Dallas decides, hey, we're moving on? Like, I think so. I think any of these teams would pick him up and be like, we're now better at the quarterback position than we were previously.
Yeah, I think that's a fair judgment, or it definitely kind of weighs it in my mind a little bit more because I don't like Dak Prescott, but I also recognize that he's not the worst option in the world at quarterback. So when you put it in that perspective, it helps me personally come to terms with that argument. So I like the way you had shaped that. Randy Gregory. I'm struggling today, gentlemen. Randy Gregory, former Cornhusker, go Skurs, and NFL journeyman, is reportedly suing the NFL and the Broncos for alleged discrimination regarding a $500,000 fine for failing drug test. Gregory was prescribed a drug that Scotty couldn't pronounce and I can't pronounce, and it was for social anxiety and PTSD, and the drug contained THC, and he applied for an exemption with the NFL in order to take his medication without consequence, but he was denied. He had been suspended a bunch of times for violating the NFL drug use policy throughout his career. That does kind of suck because now they have gotten weed, like players can smoke weed legally, right? So I won't say smoke weed legally. They don't test for weed. They test for other drugs for NFL players, but weed is not one of them, so they can get away with smoking weed. It makes it kind of interesting for, Randy Gregory, or the wide receiver who was constantly getting banned. What was his name? Josh Gordon.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, Josh Gordon, who had been cut from teams and been fined and suspended for his drug use, and it's like the dude just couldn't stop smoking weed, and now it's legal. So what are your guys' thoughts on that? I mean, like, is this, I'm not saying, none of us are lawyers here, so we don't know what the verdict is actually going to be, but like, just based on your guys' opinions, what do we think here? Just, you shouldn't have done it and slap on the wrist, or there's some ground here as far as an argument?
This is tough because I think in the broader populace has basically moved on. Like, this is a non-issue. I think most people are like, oh, you smoke weed, cool. Like, no, I don't really care. Where I feel like maybe 15, 20 years ago, it's like, oh, how are you getting a hold of that? Where are you getting? It's everywhere. It's literally everywhere. It's legal in a bunch of states, in the heavier populated areas. A lot of people are doing it. And I think it's unfortunate because alcohol isn't, but it's just as detrimental or could have harmful effects. And we've seen guys get in DUIs. We've seen them get in car wrecks. We've seen previous NFL players kill people from, being drunk in their driving. And that doesn't carry the same moniker that like weed does. And to me, he did break a rule. So, I mean, there's no arguing that. You can't like go back. Like, if it's speeding, it's speeding. Like, they changed the speed limit a week later. You were still speeding last week. So that's largely irrelevant. But I think, I agree. I think the NFL, they are adopting it, and you can see them. They've adopted a lot of those changes, and most sports leagues have. It's just like, there's nothing you can do. Like, you can't go back and fix anything that's happened.
Sure.
Yeah, and if you look at the NBA, they recently allowed players to smoke weed, and I don't think you've really seen much of a difference between the play in the NBA. You see an overall probably happy and healthier NBA because they're smoking weed or they're using CBD, whatever the case may be. But we don't see these, oh, this player's been suspended, or this player's, fined for smoking weed, or they killed this person, whatever the case may be, whatever story you want to write about it. The NBA seems to be overall happy with these changes. I think the NFL should take a lesson from the NBA here.
Alan, I'm going to hand the baton to you because I think there's a couple things that you want to discuss. So I will hand over host duties to you.
Yeah, I'm going to wrap us up. Anybody watching? This is going to be. I'm going to round us up with a few just off like color type topics that we have. First one I want to get into is this past weekend, David Njoku hosted a celebrity. It was like a charity softball game. There's a lot of people there. I think Kelsey was there. It's just a lot of people, and this video, and I think we're going to cut it in here. This video is of this old lady, and I didn't get her name, just let her be an old lady, but she's obviously like, they're celebrating her, and she hits the ball, and she's being escorted down to first baseline. Like literally you could time how fast she got there.
There
with
is
the
somebody
sundial.
carrying her.
Like literally,
yeah,
she's like barely moving. And the guys are throwing the ball around, and everybody's like celebrating, like, oh God, go. And then as she's about to get to first base, Njoku tags first base, and she's out. And he loses his mind, and everybody starts celebrating. And it's so hilarious because it's almost like those fake clips where, or those clips where you see where it's like a kid, like it's supposed to score a basket, and everybody's gonna let him, but one guy goes up and swats the basketball before it gets there. Like this is the baseball version of that, where this old lady's trying to get to first base, and he loses his mind celebrating, like tags it right before she gets there, and you just see guys running around it. And I thought, like, what a perfect thing. Hey, those guys are competitive all the time. It never stops.
So I've watched this video over the weekend, not realizing that was David Njoku that did that until we sat down to record. And when I watched that, I just started dying laughing. This lady is so old, like she can barely walk. And they're legitimately almost carrying her like to the first base, and she's going so slow. And when Njoku touches it, I just like my heart almost broke for that old lady because she was just doing something, like she was going down to first, and like she was gonna probably run the bases or something. And I'm like, that fucking piece of shit just tagged her out and loved every second of it. But you couldn't help but laugh because, like you said, if you watch that clip, he's just going crazy. Like he's like, he just like won a football game, and it was a close game, and it was just a 90-year-old lady that he got out of first.
Even the guy escorting him, like as soon as they tagged it, he's like, boo. Like you could tell, like it wasn't in the spirit of whatever they were trying to do. But I just thought it was hilarious.
Yes.
Like good for her. That old lady was slow. She should have been out anyways.
It was a good clip. We'll post it.
It was awesome. Last bit of news of just total silliness. Anthony Yeti, your Max Crosby was on the Jim Rome show on Friday, and they were getting into a few discussions. And during the interview, he shared that he's actually seen a UFO. It was during a discussion where Jim Rome was asking him, like, hey, are aliens around us? Are UFOs real? And Max Crosby shared a story that on a flight back from Miami, he said, we saw it with our own eyes. He even goes on to say, like, the pilot, everybody, we saw it. It wasn't on the radar. So, like, yeah, UFOs are real. Are we surprised that Max Crosby is all in on UFOs? Dude. Does that seem about right? Does that track?
So all I want to say about Max Crosby is he doesn't drink. He's completely sober from alcohol. So he's got to find alternative ways to, satisfy his go or give him a little juice. So, I'm not saying he does this, but that boy smokes cigars like he's smoking a joint or smoking a blunt. So maybe he had a little a little something on that plane. Maybe it wasn't weed. Maybe
I think it's hilarious.
I don't know.
A high Max Crosby in the air, literally. Also, high.
That's a fucking alien.
You see that UFO?
That's
everybody's
a
like,
fucking
you see that bright light over there?
And nobody's gonna question him because it's Max Crosby, and you're gonna be like, I don't want you to kick my ass.
They're just like, yeah, totally,
man,
dude.
The pilots are like, yeah, man, that's an alien.
Yeah. How did he know it wasn't on the radar? Was he just up front looking at a radar? Like, what radar do they have? That's what I don't
That's
understand.
also a good question.
Like, what radar was he looking at? Like, did he interview everybody when they got off the plane? Like, yo, you see that? Like, was that on the radar?
He's just waiting at the door for as everyone. He's interviewing them one by one, like writing it down. Like he said, yes.
You saw that one bright light, right? You saw that light, yeah.
Oh my gosh. Quick question. Max Crosby is on that train. What's another NFL player you think would totally get down on like conspiracies or believe in aliens? They might be real. I don't know. I'm just saying, obviously people that tend to go that route are a little out of left field. So
Puka Nacua screams somebody to me that I think would believe in aliens.
Yeah. Puka Nacua,
I think,
looks like to me in this, probably as his heritage, like he's like one really weird NFL season from just being like a pro surfer. So that checks that vibes with me.
Or like Pokemon player.
Yeah.
Maybe?
Yeah, like
Who else? Do you have anybody else that you can think of?
I think Travis
would
Kelce would 100% be like, oh yeah.
Yeah,
I think Aaron Rodgers has to be on that list, man.
True.
Rodgers definitely
True.
belongs on that.
Gardner Minshew.
True.
He's probably the one that would be like, oh, did you see that UFO?
True. Yeah.
I'm
Yeah,
sure
he
if
started
Minshew
it.
was on the
Yeah.
team last year, he'd been like, yeah, fuck yeah, bro.
Yeah, little
I'm-
ass boy.
Lewis.
I'm convinced Russell Wilson is just actually an alien. So that's where I'm gonna go.
He doesn't believe them. He is.
Oh shit. All right, Slabs, giving it back to you. Wrap us up, baby.
I appreciate you you jumping in there. That's it. That's the end of the show. Talking about aliens. Love it. Got to do one more shameless plug. Just got to let everybody know. Go check out LeatherBrainz.com. We are ramping up over there. It is still under construction, so not everything is complete, but we're going to be having a lot of new things on that website rolled out pretty consistently. So go check it out. There are articles there. You can find the show there. You can find all of our social media platforms over there. And while you're there, you might as well just go hit the subscribe button on your podcast platform of choice and leave us 5 stars and a review. That is a huge thing for us. It really does mean a lot, and it doesn't take that long. It takes less than 2 minutes for you to just hit the 5-star. If you made it through 50-something minutes of us ranting, I would really appreciate just going over there and leaving us 5 stars and leaving a review, and we will see it, and we will call you out, and we will appreciate you forever. That's it, gentlemen. Yeti, it's great to have you back. Hopefully you'll be around for the foreseeable future until fatherhood hits you like a freight train. And Alan, it was always good to have you here, and
Yes,
we'll do
sir.
it again.
Happy
next
Father's
time.
Day to everybody out there.
Yeah.
Thank you. Happy Father's Day, everybody. And last thing, we're interviewing somebody next week. We are interviewing a Jets reporter next week.
Ooh.
So excited to have him on here, and it'll be a good one. So hope to
We should
have
ask him
everybody
if
there.
he thinks Rodgers thinks UFOs are real.
I will put that
or
on my
not.
list of things to ask
Yes,
because that is
please
important.
do.
Yeah, I will
Yep.
do that. All right, let's get the hell out of here. Gentlemen, love you guys. We
R.
Out.
If you enjoyed this episode, make sure you tune into our new releases every week on your favorite podcast app. Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, and check out LeatherBrainz.com for all of your fantasy football needs. And remember, Brainiacs, a championship should be more than a fantasy.